Hello, welcome back. We have a gameplay slash review video today with it's kind of salty. I'll just say that from the beginning. If you love The Sims and you hate it when people speak badly about it, I don't go too harsh, but maybe this review isn't for you. I played this game weeks ago, and I've been putting off the review because I just didn't love it and I wanted to get my thoughts in order, but here we go. We're gonna talk about The Sims 4 Horse Ranch DLC. I'm Savalian, I make videos about games, development, and creativity, and I've been a huge fan of The Sims since Sims 1. It's one of the first real PC games I played, not counting Reader Rabbit educational video games. But I'll be honest up front, I've been really disappointed with how The Sims 4 has been handled, especially with the content that has been going into the expansion packs, which historically have been full of functionality, new features, new interactions, new ways to play the game. So I'm gonna go into this review as someone who loves the Sims franchise dearly, but I'm pretty sore about it. But I keep coming back, hopelessly optimistic, and I'm here to play the Horse Ranch DLC, which honestly I thought they already made, but I think I was misremembering a combination of the Sims 3 Pets expansion and the Cottage Life expansion for Sims 4. I like to play Sims with a goal. I'm really not a builder or a decorator. I like to play The Sims for the life sim aspect of it, so I went into this game with a goal to get the best horse. I didn't really know what that meant when I started, but I made a single sim and a single horse. They let you make a unicorn right in the creator if you want, but I decided not to. What I did was make my horse this gaudy pastel color, very bright and fun. I named my horse Abalone Reigns, the name of a champion. I was disappointed to learn that it doesn't look like the unicorns are naturally occurring in the game. There's no special unicorn NPC or special way to unlock them. And that's one thing I always liked about past expansions, were these little story elements that they built in. Little Easter eggs, things to find or unlock, whether that's from getting a skill to a certain point or finding a certain place in the game. It doesn't seem like there's much of that in this expansion, if there's anything at all. I started my little family on the biggest lot that they had in the new area, which was 64 by 64. It was completely empty, so I started building a house from scratch. Like I said, I'm really not a builder. I like to play out their little lives and do challenges and fulfill aspirations. I don't really care about building, so I just build what I need to. Usually it ends up looking like a gray box, but sometimes I get around to adding wallpaper and windows and stuff. Lights, I always forget to add lights. As I loaded in and had a look around at the new horse stuff, I saw that there is an ultimate horse competition, and that's part of the new aspiration, so I set my sights on achieving that as my goal. Something funny is that the first time my sim rode a horse, she decided she hated it immediately. I don't remember when they added this, but Sims have likes and dislikes, and they might prompt new ones based on how they're feeling when they do something. Luckily, you can override it, so my sim didn't have to live the rest of her life hating every minute that she spent on a horse. When you have a sim with low horse riding skills, or a horse that is untrained, there is a chance that they'll buck you off, and it was happening a lot early on, which I think is probably realistic but very annoying. But in addition to that normal feature, I also kept encountering this weird bug where my sim would mount the horse. Once I tried to tell her to take a ride somewhere, she would just get down from the horse. Nothing else would happen. She wouldn't do the little dance that meant something was wrong. She would just get down and they would both stand there. And once that little bug started happening, it would keep happening for the rest of the session. Very early on, I realized that the horses can get jobs, kind of. They can work little gigs, like the side jobs that Sims can do, where you just go and do them. It's all based on skills. You earn more or less, randomly, and it is just a rabbit hole. These are not really complicated or that interesting, but it is a nice way to make money if you are mainly spending your Sims' time raising horses, which, as we'll see, you pretty much have to spend all of their time raising horses to get this aspiration done. Also, pro tip, lock the doors so horses can't go inside. they're too big. They don't fit inside, but still they always want to be inside where the people are. So they would just wander inside to like talk to a person, and they would get Sims stuck in bathrooms and like just take up the whole entryway, and it was a huge pain. So I would recommend keeping the horses outside where they belong, unless I guess if you have like a bunch of doors to every room in your house. Now here is our first healthy dose of salt. Really early in my playtime for this one, I just noticed how little they actually added for this expansion. The horses exist, sure. That's probably really big for people who wanted horses in Sims 4 for a really long time and were disappointed that they didn't get added in the pets expansion like they did for Sims 3. But pretty much they added the horses. They also added nectar making, which is a fun little skill. It's, you know, just a crafting skill. I made a greenhouse to grow fruits for nectar making, and I had some fun doing that. But there's really not a lot to interact with that I was able to find. All of the horse-related activities that you access at the ranch board are rabbit holes. The jobs are rabbit holes, the competitions are rabbit holes. You adopt horses from just calling on the board and picking one from a menu. For your home, there's just one kind of horse bed, one water trough, one hay basket, 2 options for the training equipment. So I guess we got a little spoiled there with 2 different visual options. And then for fun for the horses, there's just a ball that they can like lean on a little bit. There's just not a lot of pizzazz added to the game. The gameplay itself is not really expanded in any way, and personally, I think an expansion needs to have new gameplay, new mechanics, new features, new possibilities for interacting with the Sims, and this feels a lot more like a game pack, if I'm honest. In my play, I also got the neighborhood action plan where everyone wears paper bags on their head. It made the whole game seem surreal, like an episode of Black Mirror, and I had a very hard time telling who was who because they all looked the same because they were wearing paper bags on their heads. I don't know if you can turn off the neighborhood action plans. I have never liked them. They only cause me problems, but I've been too lazy to look it up. I know you can repeal them through the mailbox or whatever, but honestly I'd just rather have them off. I don't ever play with them intentionally. About an hour in, I realized I accidentally made Abalone a male horse. I had wanted a female horse to try and breed a baby horse without adding too much to my house, to my family. So I adopted a female horse from the info board. I picked one named Firefly, who was a foal. I was thinking I could do some early training, but it turns out all you can really do when they're foals is train temperament by interacting with them normally. They can't do endurance, they can't jump, they can't do agility, but they are really cute. I really liked the baby horses. They did a good job on the animations. They looked very playful and happy and a little awkward, just like actual baby horses do. And from here, the game became a huge grind. The only way to train up the horse skills, which you need to win the competitions, is to run them around and around and around. Whether they're running around the barrels or the jumping hurdles or running through the neighborhood for endurance. There's not any sort of strategy to it. It's just a grind. It's just a skill grind. The nice thing is that the early levels go pretty quick, as you might expect, and then it gets slower, and by level 8 and 9, it's just painfully slow. I decided to have my sim have a baby as an heir to the championship ranch. Pregnant sims cannot ride horses, as you might guess, so she was out of the game for a few days. But something nice is that at a certain level, I think of the horseback riding skill for the sim. The sim can just tell the horse to go train on their own, and then they'll go and they'll run or jump on the hurdles until the equipment breaks, and then a sim has to set it back up again. And sometimes that happens really early in the training, and sometimes it happens a little bit later. I don't know if this method is faster or slower or the same as when a sim is training them, but typically you also want to train up your sim's horseback riding skills, so whenever possible I had them train together, and then just had them train on their own when I had my sim do other things. Horses do count towards your household limit, I believe, but you can't view any of their information panels directly, which I thought was a weird choice. You can't click on their needs or skills or relationship panels, but you can see them in the family list. Instead, you have to hover over the horse in the world and it will show you their needs. They're like little summaries for hunger, fun, social, and hygiene. And then like Sims, they can also have a mood, which is shown in the little pop-up, as well as in the color of their portrait. And then if you want to know why they feel that way, you can ask them what's wrong or ask them how they're doing. And I guess they tell you with their words. I don't know. It's an interesting way to do it. I'm not really sure why they didn't just adjust the needs and skills menus. It seems like they're right there, ready to be used. Maybe it's some sort of technical limitation, but you can't see their skill points in the menu or when you hover. You have to go to your Sims relationship panel and open up the horse's profile, and it will show their skills in there. Super weird, pretty clunky. It's not consistent with how you typically interact with Sims in the game. And since I was trying to train up a championship horse, I was visiting that menu really often, and that UI flow just didn't really feel good. And then finally, with a few skill points in various horse activities and with my Sims baby born, I entered the first competition. And then the way that these work is that in order to place, you need to get top 3 in a certain difficulty, and then when you do, you unlock the next difficulty level, and you have to keep going through all of the difficulty levels and get top 3 in all of the different kinds at the master level, and then you can enter the ultimate horse competition. Each horse can only compete once per day, though a sim can compete with multiple horses more than once a day. So if you have 3 horses, you could potentially compete with all 3 of them each day. But based on the fact that there are 4 skills and I think 4 difficulty levels, you need at least 16 days in the game, and you need to compete every day and place top 3 to get to the ultimate competition the fastest, which is kind of a long time for Sims. Maybe it's not the longest anything's ever taken, but it sure felt like a long time, and I was competing most days, if not every day. I was really disappointed to see that the competition is a rabbit hole. It wasn't really a surprise, but I think they could have had a lot of fun with this, made a little mini game out of it, or added some sort of buffs that you could get. I mean, obviously the mood is important going into the competition, but other than that, it's really just a calculation of whether you meet the minimum skills, and your sim and your horse goes away for a little while. They come back with the results. On the bright side, if you meet the recommended skills, you're pretty much guaranteed to place. I've never gotten below 3rd with the minimum skills. And then I think at that point it's based on a combination of luck and the mood going into the competition. So I don't know. I feel like there was a lot of potential to really make something fun and engaging here, and they just didn't do it. But there are a couple of other things that the Horse Ranch DLC has going for it, and really I'm talking about the mini sheep and the mini goats. They did these a little bit weird too, like the horses, but weirder. The mini sheep and goats are like a hybrid between furniture and how the horses work. When you buy them, they're in your inventory like objects, and you can always pick them back up and put them back in your inventory, which is a little weird. But once you put them in the world, they behave very similarly to the horses, where they have the needs that you can hover and see. You can see their mood. They use a lot of the horse furniture to fill their needs as well. I was very sad to find out that these tiny friends cannot use the dog beds, even though they're perfectly sized to fit in the little dog beds. But since they are basically objects, they don't count against your household number, so you can have a lot more of the sheep and the goats than some other things like the horses or like cats and dogs. And these little guys are so cute. I can't even handle how cute these guys are when they prance around. And they are integrated with the Cottage Life DLC, which I also have, so you can harvest milk and wool from them and use them for some of the Cottage Life recipes. I really wish they did more interactions like this between the DLCs. I feel like they took this really seriously in like Sims 1, Sims 2, and then they kind of started to peter off where the expansions really stand alone these days. They like make a whole world that is focused on one expansion, and there's really not a lot of interaction between the features of the expansions. But the mini sheep and the mini goats can also help with gardening, so there's that as well. They are pretty slow about it. I think you're supposed to have like a whole flock of them. I just had one of each to see what they were like. And then after I got more horses, I just hired ranch hands, which they help with the gardening anyway. But it's really cute to think of just having like a flock of goats and sheep doing all the weeding and the bug spraying and stuff. Around level 6 of the horse skills, things just really started to slow down. It got really, really grindy. My sim was spending all of her waking hours training the horses. I paid for a nanny and a ranch hand and sometimes a maid because she didn't have time to do anything else. Once the horses were fully grown, I started breeding them. And the way horse breeding works is that it's just a social interaction. I believe the dogs and the cats works this way, where you just say like, hey, you should breed with this other specific creature, and then they maybe do. The female horse is pregnant for a few days. During that time, she can't really do any training. Then the baby horse is born, and they need a little bit of special care, but it's not too bad. They're pretty self-sufficient. Mostly you need to teach them to eat hay, because by default, they can only have milk, either bottle-fed or from the mother horse. There was a point pretty early, like around like 2 adult horses, maybe 3, where it just got to be too much for one sim. Even with the ranch hand and taking advantage of the self-directed horse training, my sim was run ragged trying to take care of all these horses, pick up their shit, keep them training all the time so that they could get trained up for the next competition to try and get these done every day. It was incredibly grindy. And then of course the temperament skill, which is by social interactions with the horse. It felt incredibly slow to train that up. And then speaking of the ranch hands, I also encountered a bug where maybe there's like a limit on this somewhere, but I would hire a ranch hand, they would come back for a number of days, and then they would just stop coming by and I would have to rehire them. But there wasn't ever a notification like, oh, we're done with the ranch hand like contract or anything like that. It kind of implied that it would be perpetual and then they would just randomly not show up. I assume this was a bug of some sort, but I didn't know what was causing it, so I just had to keep calling the ranch hand hotline like every few days to get them to come back. But I kept going, I kept training, trying to get those higher level competitions done. Every time you win a competition, they give you a plaque for the wall, so I just started lining them up on the wall, filling the wall of my Sim's house. Her most proud achievement. She looks up at them and knows that one day she's gonna be the best. Once my Sim's baby was a child, she was able to help a little bit. Child Sims can ride the horses for endurance, help train up temperament, but they cannot do any agility training or jumping training. That is apparently reserved for teens and up, but at the same like skill level as adults, they can tell the horses to train themselves. So there's that. I had I put my Sim's child to work as soon as she was possible because we really needed all the help we could get. My main Sim got old early because of a glitch. I don't know if this is related to the horse stuff or just a coincidence, but she was a young adult, aged up well on a horseback ride, and then she aged up immediately again afterward. So she went straight from young adult to elder, and that was pretty annoying. I thought about trying to use a cheat to put her back, but I didn't really want to think that hard about it. This is the Sims experience. It's always been a little bit buggy like this, so it's hard to tell if this is something happening because of the expansion, or, you know, just normal stuff. I was a little worried that the time skip would make it impossible to reach championship before she died of old age. But on the bright side, it doesn't look like horseback riding or training counts as typical exercise. Usually elder sims will be able to exercise for a bit and then they'll be too tired, and then exercising more has the risk of exhausting them to death. But that little debuff never showed up with horseback riding, so it must count as a different sort of activity. But on it went, training and training and training and training, until finally I got all the master level competitions done. And then I ran into a problem. I'm unsure if this is a visual bug or just a weird way that the menu works, but when you get into the horse competition menu and you select a competition, it will try to guess which horse you want to compete with, and some of them will be grayed out if they're not unlocked yet. And then once you pick one, it will show all the medals that the horse has gotten, and then the unavailable ones are grayed out. And the menu is not showing the ultimate competition as available. So I would select like a master competition, my good horse would be selected there, and it wouldn't tell me I could do the ultimate horse championship. And eventually I figured out that I had to just select the horse championship anyway, at the very beginning after opening the menu, and then I would be able to select a horse and enter it. So I spent a couple days. I kind of thought that I needed to get gold in each master competition to unlock it, but no, you do just need to get top 3, so bronze, silver, or gold. But the menu was just behaving weirdly, so I wasted a couple days doing some extra competitions. And hands down, the most time-consuming and frankly boring part of this playthrough was getting those last skills from level 9 to level 10. Specifically temperament. It was grueling, it really was. But eventually, after I think over an hour of having the game mostly on fast speed as these horses trained, we got it. We entered the Ultimate Horse Championship, and we won. Victory! And that's it. Once you get a champion horse, you just have a champion horse. I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but the horse aspiration that they added for this expansion pack just has one phase with a couple of tasks in it. Winning the championship is one of them, and that's really it. You just need to win the championship and get some skills up, and that's the whole aspiration. It's another example of how, while the expansion does have some new things, it feels like they really did just the absolute minimum that they could do and still call it an expansion. I feel like it would have taken just like a tiny bit of design work to come up with a couple more rankings in the aspiration, add some fun things, some little, whimsical tasks to flesh out the aspiration and really experience the expansion pack, and they chose not to do that. A neat little feature is that once you have a championship horse, that horse's babies get the champion gene. Of course, the training and competition entries take so long that by the time your horse is a champion and the game glitches out and makes your sim old before her time, there's just not a lot of time left to train up a second generation championship horse. You really have to have sort of a legacy going on where you're continuing your family and they're training up the secondary horses. You can sell the horses for quite a pretty penny, especially if they're champions. So you could run a family that, their whole deal is they train up the best horses, makes them champions, and then sells them for a mint, if that's the story you want to play out. I think that could be fun. But having achieved my goal of becoming the best at horses, I ended my playthrough here. I might go back to this save file, but I don't know. I just don't feel like there's anything left to do with the horse expansion. I feel like I've kind of experienced it all. In the end, this feels very similar to a lot of the other Sims 4 expansions. For me, a little lacking. I think, especially at the price point, which I believe was $40, I would really like there to be more game. More attention to how you interact with the new content, instead of just adding like some new text around the rabbit holes and you know, maybe adding a career or another skill. It just doesn't really do it for me. And I think, I don't know, I don't think I'm alone in thinking this. I can remember, you know, early Sims expansions where they really changed the way that the game worked and the things that your sim could do and be. And I just feel like the magic of OG Sims is kind of lost in a lot of the newer expansions. And there are people who are really engaged in building their Sims game around a story that they want to tell. And if you want to tell a story with horses, and you've wanted this for a long time, maybe you don't want to use Sims 3 for whatever reason, I still think the expansion's a bit overpriced, but this is horses. This will add the horses that you want to tell your horse story. You could probably make some really cool looking scenes with, you know, with the Sims build mode if you're a builder. Like I said, I'm really not, and so none of that really appealed to me, and I felt the things that I do use and interact with in Sims, you know, the life sim part, to just not have a whole lot of meat on those bones. I do think the horse create a sim is really flexible, probably more than the cat and dog create a sim. I think there's like an airbrush option where you can literally paint the patterns on the horses, and then of course you can have unicorns too if that's what you're into. It's kind of fun. I like it. Very magical. But this review slash play slash rant has gone on long enough. That's my first look at the gameplay of Sims 4 Horse Ranch DLC. If you've played it, what did you think? Did my kind of negative review set your blood on fire? Let me know in the comments. But be nice about it. Please. Please. We're all gamers here. But I'm Savalian. I make videos about games, development, and creativity. I'll be back soon with another video, and I hope to see you there. Okay, bye-bye.